Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, bringing you episode 223 here at the tavern, if you can believe it. Yes, fellow patrons of the tavern, it has been a very, very long time since we last met here, and all I can do is apologize to you guys. You know, life finds a way, they say, and life finds a way to interrupt you in your podcast series. Now, there are a number of reasons why I haven't done this in a while, and maybe that's something we'll go ahead and talk about in the future. But I felt compelled to do tonight's episode for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, it has been a while since I've been able to do episodes with you guys to, just share my thoughts on Power Rangers. And, it's really hard to kind of bottle up your thoughts on Power Rangers, especially with the way the franchise is going and the changes that we've had, since we've last talked. And, like I said, things kind of got in the way, and I just kind of, piped down on my opinions and stuff. But I feel like it's time that, I came back and just got some of that stuff out there, because what this video is ultimately going to be is it's going to be a video about me talking about Power Rangers as a whole, from Mighty Morphin to Dino Fury. But in this video, I'm also going to talk about what I think is the single greatest thing we've gotten from the Hasbro era. The biggest thing that's happened since the last time I've been on this podcast with you guys is the Lightning Collection. So essentially what this is going to be is this is going to be a countdown of me telling you guys every single Lightning Collection figure that I want from each season, and taking the opportunity to explain what it is I like about that season, just my overall thoughts, and why I'm choosing this particular Ranger as my choice. So for those of you who are returning, you get to listen to me again, and I get to remind you my opinions on Power Rangers, although some of them may have changed in the last couple of years. Certainly I've gone back to some of my older videos and just kind of cringe at some of the things I've said and thought, and maybe I'm a little bit older and maybe wiser at this point, to where my opinions could maybe be a little bit more refined. And for those of you who are brand new here, well, we get to discuss about the Lightning Collection, we get to discuss about Power Rangers, and you get to listen to my opinions and decide you don't want to hear them anymore. Because truth is, again, for those of you who have been here, you know what it is. My opinions are contrary to popular belief in Power Ranger fandom. It just seems that everything Power Ranger fandom seems to agree on, I have a complete opposite opinion. Not to be contrarian, it's just how I feel. Now, maybe the fan base is younger and not as old as I am, or they just, come from a different worldview or something, but I just can't seem to agree on anything with the overall Power Ranger fan base, and that is rather disappointing. But, hey, it's my show, and I'm just going to give you guys my opinion, and that's the truth of the matter here. So, that's what you're in for, and I hope you guys enjoy the ride. So let's set up a couple of things before we actually get into the list here. First of all, I love the Lightning Collection, and I am doing my best to collect every single figure that comes out. Not so much the weapons, really. I definitely love all the helmets. I'm getting all those, and I'm grabbing up every figure that they do have. And quality control issues aside, and that's a video for a different time. I really love what they're doing, and I love the idea that one day we will have every single Ranger ever in just basically a toy display. I mean, that's my goal. That's what I'm hoping to get from this line, is that every single Ranger ever will be made. Primarily the ones from the show, maybe the ones from the comics. We'll talk about that as we get in there. And again, I love the line, I love the detail. I mean, I think what sets us apart from something like the Legacy Collection that Bandai had is that they are detailed, they do come with their weapons, and they come with changeable heads. Because I think what's lost in Power Rangers in general, and this also applies to Super Sentai, is that we forget about the people under the helmets and just concern ourselves with the Rangers themselves. I think, for just example, We see Mighty Morphin yellow, but how many of us see either Trini or Aisha in that? Or in some cases, how many of us see Boy from Zoo Ranger? We don't really see that. And the fact that they come with the helmets with the likeness of the actors and actresses, that's really cool. That's really special. And that's what kind of really got me into this line, is that it is something that's uniquely Power Rangers. It is something that's celebrating the cast and, more importantly, the characters. It's not just them putting out, a Pink Ranger figure or a Black Ranger figure or a Gold Ranger figure. They're putting out these characters. Even though they don't acknowledge it necessarily on the box or anything like that. I kind of wish there was like a bio card on the back, like they used to have Beast Wars and Transformers, just tells you who they are, what season they're from and stuff, or just give us stats, at least, I would like to know, how tall are the A-Squad Rangers? That would be something to go ahead and know. But, I like the collection as it is. I'm very curious to see where it goes here in the future. And basically what I'm going to give you guys tonight is the list of single Rangers from each team that I would like to go ahead and primarily have. As I said, I'd like to go ahead and have all of them, but let's say I'm at Hasbro and I get to decide which figures come next in the line. Well, that's what I'm going to give you guys with my opinions here. I'm going to say, this is the next one that I want, and I'll give you reasons why. And of course, as I said, just give my general thoughts on each season. I'm not going to go ahead and cover allies or Ranger-like characters like the Masked Rider and all that. I'm going to limit myself to who are typically considered as Rangers, whether they have Ranger in their name or not, which I know is a debate in and of itself. And I'm not going to be focusing on the villains, because is it great to have a Lord Zed figure? Oh, certainly. Is it great to go and have an Ecliptor figure? Yeah, cool. Blaze? Not so much. I know the villains are important, and maybe I'll do a list of villains that I want in the future, monsters or otherwise, but I don't get too excited about the Putty Patroller 2-packs, or the Cog 2-packs, or even the Tangas. I'm here for the Rangers, but as a completionist, I want everything. So I'm just going to give you guys my opinions on the Rangers, what I think, and all that good stuff. And again, we'll cover Mighty Morphin to Dino Fury, and then we'll hit on a couple of other topics towards the end here. So, with all that out of the way, get settled. I hope you enjoy it, and I will have timestamps below for each particular season, so you can skip around if you want, so you don't have to listen to me talk about a particular one for 15 minutes. You can just get to your favorite seasons. Sound good, guys? Alright, let's get started. Alright, obviously, very beginning, Mighty Morphin. And here's the thing. I know we would not be where we are today. I would not be doing this if Mighty Morphin did not exist, and I love it. I think it's a great show, warts and all. But man, are we oversaturated with Mighty Morphin in the market. We really, really are. There's just too much Mighty Morphin stuff out there. Do I appreciate Mighty Morphin t-shirts? Sure I do. But can I get a Time Force shirt or Wild Force jacket or something other than Mighty Morphin? Because, I might have like 3 Green Ranger shirts already, and that's probably 3 too many or 2 too many. I don't know. It's just everywhere you go, and I don't know who this is supposed to be for. Because if you are appealing to the fans of Power Rangers, I got news for you. Power Ranger fans don't just like Mighty Morphin. I can't remember the last time I talked to a Power Ranger fan that only liked Mighty Morphin. And I've made this comparison before in the past, and it's true. I'm sorry, but it is. It's like Star Trek. Go ask a Star Trek fan, or if you are one, ask yourself this. How many of them only like the original series with Kirk and Spock and McCoy and the crew? Not many. Because if you're a Star Trek fan, I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, you're going to be a fan of the franchise, of the original series, Next Gen, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery, Picard. Those are it's not just the individual shows, it's the entire franchise. I'm not just a fan of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I'm a fan of all Power Rangers. And I just don't like the fact that it's Mighty Morphin in the market everywhere. Let's get some Lost Galaxy gear, some SPD gear, some RPM gear, some Beast Morphers gear. Let's get some more of that out there, because there are people to this day that did not know that anything beyond Mighty Morphin existed. And that's a fault of the franchise for not marketing something other than Mighty Morphin. I mean, the reboot movie was Mighty Morphin. The comics are Mighty Morphin. Everything outside the Lightning Collection is Mighty Morphin. It's just, who are they appealing to? Because I know Mighty Morphin was the height of the popularity of the franchise. I mean, I totally understand that, guys, but there's more to it than that. And if you're trying to appeal to the public, don't just say, hey, remember this from when you were 6? Say, oh, by the way, after you stopped watching, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And maybe get them interested in other stuff. Because if they like Jason, maybe they like Devin, or maybe they're going to like Wes, or maybe they're going to go ahead and like Trent. I don't know. They're going to like other stuff, but you got to present it to them and say, hey, after Mighty Morphin, other cool stuff happened. Let me tell you about that stuff. So it's just kind of annoying about the oversaturation of Mighty Morphin in the market. And as such, the oversaturation of the figures. And I didn't do a count of how many figures there are. The fact is, there are 7 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, white and green included in there. And anything beyond that is superfluous. The metallic armor is superfluous. The idea of us getting Wild West Rangers is beyond superfluous. The Ninja Rangers, that's a good addition. There's nothing particularly wrong with that. But what the hell is this cell-shaded stuff that we're getting with the Pink Ranger? And if we're getting it for Pink Ranger, it sounds like we're going to be getting it for the other Rangers too. Who wanted cell-shaded Rangers? Like, what is that from? It makes no sense. And the fact that they even released a Black Ranger figure with a dragon shield, like, you just need the regular Black Ranger. You don't need the dragon shield. You know what you could do? Just have a removable dragon shield off the Green Ranger. You don't need to make an extra figure for it. It's just kind of maddening, all this stuff. Like, the issue with the Legacy collection for Mighty Morphin was that they did all these figures, but they didn't finish them by the time the Hasbro took over and started the Lightning Collection. Well, we can't guarantee Hasbro's always going to be the steward of the franchise. So what happens if, you get 17 versions of the Black Mighty Morphin Power Ranger and 30 versions of the Pink Mighty Morphin Power Ranger, but somewhere along the line they forgot to do the Operation Overdrive Rangers? Because right now if we took every figure that's out there and took all the ones in Mighty Morphin that were not the 7 Rangers and, replaced them with, actual Rangers, we'd probably be 3/4 done with every Ranger out there. I mean, it's just kind of maddening in that regard. That being said, there are very few candidates as far as a figure that I want next. Again, we have 7 Rangers. Beyond that, I don't really want anything else. But I do have to go ahead and pick something because, indeed, there are options out there. And really, the only one that I would be interested in right now having would be Metallic Armor White Ranger. Now, I say that because I have the other 5 Metallic Armor Rangers, and I would like to go ahead and get a 6th one. I would like to get Tommy. I'd like to have a complete set. Yes, are the Ninja Rangers out there? Certainly. Would I like to have red and yellow when they come out? Absolutely. But also with that, it's like they do have Ranger in the title, but they're not the spandex and the helmet, which is what I primarily constitute as a Ranger. Yes, the Ninjetti forms, the Ninja Ranger forms, wherever they are a separate form. But when I'm looking at my collection, all that, I plan out, once I have all my figures out of their boxes and separate out, I'm going to have 3 different sets for them. I'm going to have the Rangers, the Villains, and Other. Ninja Rangers, Metallic Armor, those all fit under Other. Heck, the Ninja Turtle figures, which I can't even believe we got those go under Other as well. So I want something that would go in the pile. And yes, the Metallic Armor Rangers would go in Other, but just the fact that I want to complete a set. Because if the Lightning Collection ended today, yeah, we'd be down to Ninja Rangers, but we wouldn't have a full metallic set. If we can at least get the metallic set, I would be satisfied. And I know I rambled on too much about Mighty Morphin, but Hasbro's doing the same thing. They're rambling on too much about Mighty Morphin, and it's just getting ridiculous. And I think I've said my piece on that. So, in the end, metallic armor, White Ranger, that's the one I want for my Mighty Morphin choice. And beyond that, in the final two Ninja Rangers, I don't want anything else. I don't want to hear any about Mighty Morphin releases. Unfortunately, we're going to get them. So, we're just going to have to go ahead and deal with it down the line. Alright, so next up, Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers. And I guarantee you, most of you out there all forgot about the Alien Rangers, because you always forget about the Alien Rangers. I don't care if it was 10 episodes or 100, it is a season between Mighty Morphin and Zeo, and those Rangers count just as much. And I always find it disappointing when people overlook the Alien Rangers. And I don't understand why. Is it because they're alien? Is it because it was a non-traditional season, a mini-season, a mini-arc, whatever you want to go ahead and call it? The fact that their primary Zords are the Battle Borgs, even though they're from Kaku Ranger footage and all that. I don't know about you guys, but I do love me some Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers. And what I'm hoping is that they will go ahead and do, like, we only got one 5-pack so far in the entire series, and I do hope that they do, and that was the Psycho Rangers, and I hope the next one they do would be the Alien Rangers, just because I can imagine fans of Power Rangers not being too interested in buying those Rangers, because again, they forget about them. They don't. I mean, even Linkara, as great as he is for Power Rangers, go back to his Wild Force review and what he said about Forever Red, saying that he would have replaced Oriko, the Red Alien Ranger, with Rocky as the Red Ninja Ranger. And I'm like, why? In my opinion, Rocky is not a Red Ranger. Yes, he was. You know, I get that. He was Jason's replacement. But in the grand scheme of Power Ranger history, I always view him as a Blue Ranger. When I look at the Mighty Morphin Red Ranger, I never see Rocky. I see Jason. But when I look at Zeo, I see Rocky. But I'm digressing here. Point is, Alien Rangers are awesome. They deserve their figures in the line. They honestly do. That being said, I think Alan Palmer would kill me, because I did that great interview with him a few years ago, and I would probably want to say his figure, but dang it, my favorite is Sestro. He's my favorite Alien Ranger. I think his suit's the coolest. I like the shade of blue that they use. I love his Battleborg as a wolf. The Kaku Ranger footage. It's wolf Zords and so forth. And I just like Sestro. I think he's an interesting character. He and Delphine are the ones they gave the most screen time to, that they made interesting, because, and let's be honest with this, back in 96, it was Sestro, Delphine, and 3 white guys. It's not like they were anywhere interesting. They didn't even make any of those other 3 characters interesting, but they made Sestro interesting. They made Delphine interesting. And of course, it'd be a toss-up, really. I mean, I'd be fine with any of the Alien Rangers, but if I had to pick one, and I say, make this figure, release the next wave, I'm going to go with Sestro, the Blue Alien Ranger. That is the one I want to go ahead and see in the line. And, they need to have their heads. That's the thing. The A Squad did not have their civilian heads. I do not know why. It's not like they couldn't find pictures or they couldn't find the actors, but the Alien Rangers need those alien heads. That is so cool. And I'm also Zato from Dino Fury. They should release a head with his antennae on there. Because, he's a human, but if I put him on display, he's going to be a Rafcon. That's what I want. I want the aliens. I want the uniqueness. I want that diversity. That's what I want. So, Sestro with his alien head is what I want. All right, let's talk about Power Rangers Zeo. So first of all, as far as the series is concerned, I really don't have much to say about it because it is a great season. It did a lot of things right. Gold Ranger Mystery was awesome. The Zords were great. I liked the villains. Clank and Orbis are always some of the most interesting but yet forgotten side characters. And if we're talking about eventually getting villains, Clank and Orbis would be a good choice, I would go ahead and say. Maybe along with Prince Gasket. But the thing with the thing with the Zeo Rangers is we have all the Zeo Rangers now. Now that GameStop and Hasbro Pulse are finally shipping out the cat figure set, we have Zeo Ranger 1 Pink, and of course now at the time of this recording, Tanya is being shipped out Zeo Ranger 2 Yellow. The thing is, there are no variations of these Rangers. There is no armor, there is no battleizer, there are no metallic upgrades, there's no alternate forms. What you get with Zeo is Zeo. There is nothing beyond that. As I said, you can do the villains. They've done the Cogs. Maybe we'll get Mondo. Maybe we will get Gaskin, Archerine, or some of these other characters down the line. But the only other possible character you could do from Zeo that's a hero would be Auric the Conqueror. But with my own rules, he's not even a Ranger, so he wouldn't even count there. So, in the Gold Ranger, we have a Jason variant, and we have a Trey variant. So, what else is there that you need? There's no need for any of these other figures. So, for right now, I'm just going to say Zeo's a wash, because there's no other figure that I would want from this line. It's complete. I have my 6 Zeo Rangers already. 7, because I was able to get a hold of the Jason variant. And that's it. It's done. No more for Zeo. You don't have to make any more figures. You don't need to make glow-in-the-dark green Ranger. You don't need to make, camouflage blue Ranger or nothing. And geez, I hope I'm not giving Hasbro ideas. But you don't need to make any more. We're fine with Zeo. Let's move on to another season. And we're going to do that right now because we're going to move on to Power Rangers Turbo. Now, despite what Hasbro is telling you, they have made a Turbo figure already. They've released the Phantom Ranger. Why they labeled him as Power Rangers in Space, I have no clue. It makes no sense. How many episodes of Power Rangers did he appear in? Power Rangers in Space, how many did he appear in? 3 by my count. 2 if you count Countdown to Destruction as 1 episode. Because he shows up in Delta Discovery, he shows up in Countdown to Destruction Part 1, and at the end of Countdown to Destruction Part 2, and doesn't factor into the rest of that series at all. So why is he counted as Power Rangers in Space? No clue, no idea. But, moving on, we do have 5 Rangers to go through. Now, of course, I got the allies of Blue Centurion, who sometimes I'd be willing to consider with the group of Rangers, but let's be honest, he's an ally, he's not an actual Ranger. So, of the 5, and this may shock a couple of you guys, the one that I would want to see released as a figure is Justin, the Blue Turbo Ranger. Now, my opinions on Turbo have softened over the years because, Power Rangers Turbo was, for a very long time, the worst series for me. And Justin did have a lot to go ahead and do with that. Looking back at the series, there were obviously some other factors that went into it. But man, oh man, with Power Rangers in the last decade or so, Turbo is not as bad as we first thought. And I've seen other people have that opinion as well. And I'm going to go back to Linkara here. I definitely agree with him. The first half isn't very good. But the second half, when they introduced TJ, Carlos, Ashley, and Cassie, it got a lot better. And I think the thing with that is, if Turbo in its entirety was a brand new team from the beginning, I think a lot of people would have accepted it better. And just kind of follow me on this. What if Turbo started with the movie was the Passing the Torch saga? What if it was the Zeo Rangers retiring and Zordon creating new powers to create the Turbo Rangers, and the movie is the bridge, the handoff, the Star Trek Generations, if you will. And Turbo was nothing but TJ, Justin, Cassie, Ashley, and Carlos from the start. I think that would have improved it, because what Turbo is a continuation of Zeo. Zeo is a continuation of Alien Rangers, and Alien Rangers is a continuation of Mighty Morphin. So you're tracking that all the way back to Day of the Dumpster, and if you take a look at that first team compared to Turbo team, it's night and day. But now that we've gotten so used to every season is different, imagine this for a second. I mean, just imagine them transitioning from the original Mighty Morphin team to the Ninja Steel team. It's just jarring, and you'd hate it worse. Or even if it was a season people liked, it wouldn't feel right. I mean, but Turbo, if it stood on its own the entire time, if Tommy, Kat, Tanya, and Adam didn't come over, then I think people have looked at it a little bit more favorably. But the fact is, people latched onto Justin as the problem. He is one of the issues in there because of the writers and producers pandering to a younger audience and so forth. But again, Justin is no way the worst Ranger anymore. Turbo's no longer the worst season anymore. Trust me, there are other seasons that are far more terrible. But that all being said, I want to see a Justin figure, because I just want to see what the hell they're going to do with it. Because recall, Justin is a 12-year-old boy in the season and then grows into his standard Power Ranger alter ego. So are they going to release a figure with the kid Justin head? And you're going to put that kid head on the adult body? What are they going to do? I mean, they got to have the head. They can't have the head. And it's going to have that bowl cut, too. That ridiculous. I don't even think that. I mean, was that even a 90s hairstyle for real? I mean, how many kids actually had that? It was just ridiculous. I mean, I'd imagine they'd have to do some sort of deluxe edition or 2-pack to where they have the Kid Justin version just to kind of justify the head in there, because it would just look ridiculous otherwise. And you can't release the figure without a head. You really can't, especially if you're going to release the other Turbo Rangers with their heads. So I don't know, folks. I want to choose it just because I want to see what the heck they're going to do with it. How are they going to implement this figure? Because, if it was TJ, super simple on what they're going to go ahead and do. Release him with TJ's head, release him with the sword, maybe pieces to build the turbo ram or something. One of them you can give the turbine laser to, any number of things. But I would just love to see what they would go ahead and do with the Justin figure, so that's why he's going to be my pick. All right, next we got Power Rangers in space. Now, this is another team that is completed, but oddly enough, they are releasing the Blue Space Ranger with his Galaxy Glider, with the incorrect Ranger logo on it, mind you, and that's a different topic. So I guess I could say a Ranger with his Galaxy Glider, but that's not the way I'm going to go here, because even though that the space team is complete, I think the next figure they need to make, and eventually they're going to have to do this, I really do, they're going to go ahead and make Battleizers. So I would choose the red Battleized Armor Ranger from Power Rangers in Space. That just seems like the logical choice for a deluxe edition, don't you think? I mean, remember, they didn't get that golden armor upgrade like Mega Ranger did. There's no other variations other than, the Psycho Ranger disguises, but you really going to release these Rangers with gray patches on their uniforms? No, I don't think so. So they are kind of limited in what they can do, just like Zeo, just like Mighty Morphin, but Mighty Morphin found a way to include all this ridiculous stuff. But I think that the reasonable thing to do here is just to include a Battleizer armor, because, I mean, it is not traditional in the sense that you can just put the armor on the Red Ranger figure. I don't think they're going to do that, because the suit is different. It's a muscle suit. It's got a different design on it. I think it's like a window piece or a circuit piece on the chest. So you could make a completely unique Lightning Collection figure out of that. And they're going to have to go Battleizers, because now that we are in Power Rangers in Space era, at this point moving forward, it's Battleizers pretty much every season till Jungle Fury, really. So that would be my choice, is to go ahead and get the Battleizer for what is considered the best season of Power Rangers. I don't think I need to talk too much about it, because I like it, you like it. I haven't heard anybody that doesn't like it. I mean, it is the season that literally saved the show, so there you are. So really kind of short and sweet with Power Rangers in Space. But then we're going to start getting into seasons where we don't have any completed sets at all. and things start to get a little bit more complicated as far as the number of Rangers and the things that you can go ahead and do. And now we've moved into Lost Galaxy. And so far, Lost Galaxy has had 3 figures, Red, Blue, and the Magna Defender. So we have 3 Rangers left. The wrinkle to that is you can always do the variant with the Lights of Orion. That's an option. Also, like, one of the Leo figures came with his Quasar Cannon, but Kai's figure did not, or vice versa. I can't remember off the top of my head. So you can always do that. I'm sure the Galaxy, the Galaxy Rangers could have the Jet Jammers. Depends on how well, I guess, the Galaxy Gliders do. But the thing about Power Rangers Lost Galaxy in general, and this will kind of lead to my choice, is that it is a very unique season when you think about it. Nowadays, I think people are much more aware of the Sentai footage and how it's integrated and just how it doesn't really match at all what they're going for a number of reasons. But back in these early days, even to my Morphin era, I always thought it meshed pretty well. Season 2, notwithstanding, of course. And Lost Galaxy did a great job of meshing that Ginga Man forest nature theme with this colony and space theme in a really unique way. Because even things like Terra Venture is not something that you see a lot in science fiction nowadays. I think even Star Trek Discovery, now that they're in the 29th century, has a Terra Venture-like ship in the fleet. But it's not something you really kind of saw in science fiction. Definitely something very unique to Power Rangers, so much so that, it's being utilized in the Mighty Morphin comics at this point. It was used in the Beyond the Grid storyline, and of course, it's Grace's headquarters, Promethea, before it became Terra Venture. I'm kind of curious to see where that plot line goes. But just a really unique season. It's really good. I like the characters. I like the arcs they went on and so forth. And give me a minute to just kind of, I guess, deviate. We're still going to stay in the Lost Galaxy thing, but everywhere I look, when people put the figures they want, one of the top figures I always put is Kendrick's. And ultimately, I want a Kendrick's figure because, again, I want the whole set. But their reasoning is that they want Kendrick's because she's the first Ranger to die in the series. And that's apparently special enough to warrant a figure. And maybe I'll do a whole video on this later on down the line or something like that, but think about it for a second. Before she sacrificed herself, what exactly did Kendricks do in the show? Was she really an interesting character? Because I can only think of the Stolen Beauty episode, which I think a lot of people agree is one of the worst episodes of Lost Galaxy, if not the entire series. And then there was that episode where she met her identical twin, who was an actress, and then she had to be her double for a day or something like that. Some nonsensical plot that really makes no sense when you sit and think about it. And they want to make her figure because she died in the series? I don't know. That just seems... They're trying to elevate her character when there isn't much to elevate. Because if you look at all the characters in Lost Galaxy, hers is really lacking in a lot of ways. And while I do want to go ahead and see her as a figure, it's not one I'm immediately interested in. Now, the one I am immediately interested in is Maya, the Yellow Galaxy Ranger. And I say this because say what you want about the Charlie Brown designs on the chests and whatnot, I really love the Lost Galaxy helmets. The weakest one, of course, being the Pink Galaxy Ranger, the strongest being the Blue Galaxy Ranger. But I really do like the Yellow Galaxy Ranger helmet, and I would like to see this as a figure. I'd just like to see the detail on it and the fact that it would be a female mold, which is different from essentially what we do see in the show, because, as you may recall, Ginga Yellow is a male in the Sentai, but female in Power Rangers. And I just think it would be pretty cool, with those female molds, because, that's kind of the thing, is like, you don't really think about this, but outside of American-only footage and the action figures, you don't see a lot of these male to female characters in female bodies. You really don't. I mean, kind of go back and look at the footage and so forth. Even like the original toys, like look at the original Mighty Morphin Trini toys. They're all modeled male bodies just 'cause that's how toys were in the early to mid 90s and so forth. Now we can sculpt, female forms and so forth. And I do remember the Galaxy figures coming out and how so weird the yellow Galaxy Ranger looked because it was using the female mold as opposed to the male mold, and it was just kind of interesting to look at. I don't know why it kind of fascinates me and all that, but the fact that we can get the Yellow Ranger in the female mold, again, that's something that's unique to us here in the United States. That's something they'll have in Japan. They don't have a female version of Ginga Yell. The closest they get is a Gokai change. And I don't think they're releasing Gokai change figures over in Japan, at least not yet. So that's been a weird tangent on Lost Galaxy and so forth, but that's my choice. The Yellow Galaxy Rangers, the next one I want to go ahead and do. We're halfway done with the Galaxy team, so shouldn't be much longer until we get the entire team. All right, so we're going to move on to the next series on the list, which does not have any Lightning Collection figures as of right now, and that is Lightspeed Rescue. So we got 6 Rangers to go ahead and choose from, and it's kind of a hard choice because there are 2 that come to mind that I think every Power Ranger fan wants. Now, certainly, do we want blue, green, pink, and yellow? Certainly, yes. Again, we want the whole team and everything. Mainly green because I want to see what they're going to do with this cowboy hat. But the 2 figures I think the general public want is the Red Ranger and the Titanium Ranger. Because Titanium Ranger, First American Ranger, and Carter Grayson. And I don't think I need to say more about that, because he's Carter Grayson. He is, I think, one of the coolest, if not the coolest, Red Ranger out there. I think he's got an interesting character. And, if there's any person I want to see come back in the comics and have like a solo series, it's probably going to go ahead and be him. But I really do like Lost Galaxy. I know a lot of people complain about the villains, they get better later. But I tell you, the last fourth of Lightspeed Rescue is really Power Rangers at its high point. A lot of character drama, especially on the villain side. A lot of use of American footage. And I do, in a lot of ways, I think Fate of Lightspeed is probably better than Countdown to Destruction. Certainly the stakes were bigger in Countdown to Destruction, but Fate of Lightspeed, that's just a masterpiece. Especially the stuff they were able to accomplish with the American footage, and it's just so cool. Go watch Fate of Lightspeed. I'm sorry it's not on Netflix anymore, but damn, go buy the DVD because that's just like one of the best finals in Power Rangers. But the figure I want is Carter, the Red Lightspeed Ranger, because he's just cool. I like his suit design. It's the best helmet, I think, even better than the Titanium Ranger. I don't know what else to go ahead and say, guys. He's just one of the best Red Rangers out there. It's a really good season, and I don't think I need to say much more about it. Which I guess is maybe one of the issues with Lightspeed Rescue. There isn't much to say about it. You like it, but it's like, hey, I like it just because. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next season. All right, so now it's time for Time Force, and I'll be honest with you guys, I do think that the greatness of Time Force is a little exaggerated. Don't get me wrong, it's a good season. But when I do look in like the Zordon era, I'm not going to go ahead and say that it's one of my favorite seasons. It does a lot of things I like. I like Ranzik. I like Frax. I like Wes and his father. I like Eric's story and all that. But it's not just one of my favorites. It's good. It's good. It's mid-tier for me and whatnot. But I just think its popularity is overblown at this point. Maybe, a little unfairly and all that, but I don't know. It's just kind of average to me, and I just don't get why people think it's the best ever and all that. And a lot of them apparently, it's like it's Jin. It all goes back to Jin. That's the only thing people kind of talk about, and and again, this will be probably a video for another time, but I think I think people like her because she stands out in comparison to the Pink Rangers that came before. Because if you compare Jen to Kimberly or Kat or Cassie or Kendricks, um, or Dana, certainly, there's no comparison. She like kind of wins out in like every department. Um, so it's kind of like people I think gravitate to her story, which I think is good. But they say like she's the best Pink Ranger ever, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Especially with other Pink Rangers that we've had since then. I think she's an interesting character certainly, but I think her popularity in the popular series is a little overblown. Again, to me, it's kind of like a mid-tier season and whatnot. But right now, we only have one Lightning Collection figure from this line, oddly enough. They made one, and at no point have they gone back to make any more. And that was, again, way back in Wave 5. I think this was like the 28th figure that they made, if my notes are right. And that was Wes. So I think the one I certainly want, the next one I would want, is Trip. And I want that because I always liked. I never really liked the Time Force suits overall. Like I love the idea of colored visors, but certainly other seasons did them better than Time Force. But I think the Green Ranger suit is probably my favorite, and I think Trip was my favorite character. You know, this season had probably the same issue that Enterprise had, and they focused on three characters primarily in their stories, and the other three just kind of got off to the side. I mean, other than Katie's super strength and her obligatory travel to the past that may have been a dream but wasn't a dream kind of thing, um, what do you know about her? What's interesting about her character? Isn't too much. And same thing with Lucas. He likes to drive, and he dated Nadira. Trip has a little bit more going on with telekinesis and all that, but the series does suffer from focusing on three Rangers and not the entire ensemble. But Trip was my favorite, and again, I want to see an alien head of him with the green hair, with the gem on his forehead and all that. And if you want to pack him with something, put Circuit in there. I think that would be a cool little bonus for a figure. He's not, head and shoulders my favorite Time Force Ranger, but he is one of the cooler ones in terms of design and concept. The fact that he's an alien and all that, I think that's what makes him cool. And that is the figure I would like most from Time Force. If I had to guess, we're probably going to get Quantum Ranger or Time Force Pink next, because, like I said, it's those three that people kind of focus on, and that's probably what we're going to be getting. So the next season is Wild Force, and depending on what year it is, it's either underrated or overhyped. I'm not particularly sure what it is this year. And I think we're heading into an anniversary year with Wild Force. And so far, they've only released one figure, the Lunar Wolf Ranger with his 5 stripes, his white boots. And I don't know what they're planning on doing next with the line, but before I go into my choice, I will say this. I do like Wild Force as a whole. I thought it was cool. I think the auxiliary Zords were great because this is the first time they did it, and they did not overdo it like they are doing in a number of other seasons, which, we'll get to. Yeah, I mean, the Zords were great. The Zenaku plot was good. There were just a lot of different things in that season that worked for me. I liked what the villains did at the end. Master Org and his backstory, how it connects with Cole. I mean, that stuff is great. That stuff is great. And that being said, the figure I want, and I know it's going to be a little controversial, is I do want Cole. And I want to talk about this point real quick, because we did a video way back in the day where we talked about Ricardo, Cole's actor, and his legal issues and all that. First of all, let me point out that he is currently out. He served his time. I guess he's still on probation or something like that. So, whatever, he's out of jail at this point. Okay? And there has been talk about if they did Wild Force, they would not put Cole's head on there because, and I quote, he's a murderer. we're not putting Ricardo's head up there, we're putting Cole's head. The fact that they share the same face is irrelevant. And I think it's a mistake to do that. Because, first of all, who are you offending by putting his head on an action figure at this point? Because, I hate to tell you, but even back in the day when Wild Force was out, they had his head on the figures, on the Automorph figures, and I think that was even a large figure with his head up on there. And his face is still in the DVDs. I mean, those aren't going away. The episodes are not going to disappear from the face of the earth or anything. And if you release a Cole figure without the head, but you give all the other Rangers a head, I mean, what is that really saying? That you're going to pick and choose which Rangers you want to go ahead and do? And I think this is a topic for another video, certainly, because it's a much weightier topic. But in my opinion, I think it would be stupid to release a Cole figure without Cole's head in it. All right? I mean, what are you afraid is going to happen? People are going to boycott the action figure line of a character from 20 years in the past because of the actions of his actor? You know, I can't think of any other franchise out there where they don't make action figures or they don't use the likeness of an actor for something they did in real life for their character. I mean, or are you going to tell me if Hayden Christensen went and murdered 5 people tomorrow that they would stop making action figures with his face? Or better yet, you know, what if it was Harrison Ford on the set of Rust and he accidentally killed that girl? Then are they going to stop making Han Solo figures? I don't think so, because they know it's not Harrison Ford, it's Han Solo, and there has to be a separation of reality and fantasy. The Lightning Collection is an extension of fantasy, therefore Cole's head should be on the figure, and that's the figure I want to go with. Which leads me into Ninja Storm, because, and it's the same principle here. I mean, okay, so the figure I would want probably the most would be the Thunder Rangers. But I want to talk about the elephant in the room here and talk about Shane and his actor. Because that's the figure I want. I want the Red Ranger. Because I want them to put their heads on the figures. Because I think it sets a bad precedent if you do not put their heads on the figures. Now, I don't know what your opinion is on, you know, Shane's actor. I think it's Pua, and I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly. Because in my mind, he's an individual who had a troubled history, troubled relationship, who needed help, did not get the help he needed, and unfortunately he ended his life. All right? That's the story with it. That all being said, that doesn't mean that that's an excuse not to put Shane's head on an action figure. We expect it. You gotta put Tori's head, Dustin's head, Blake's head, Hunter's head, Cam's head. You gotta put Shane's on there. You can't get... You can't just say, hey, you know, his actor did this in real life, and therefore we're going to judge him forever, and we're not going to go ahead and put his head on the figure. Same thing with Cole. It's really odd that we have these two quote-unquote controversies with two Red Rangers in back-to-back seasons. It is kind of odd in the grand scheme of things. But they need to follow through. If the point of the line was to put the heads on the figures, they need to do this. And I don't know who the executives are in charge, and they probably don't care about what the actors did and stuff. And again, this is a figure line for adults, and we are all adults here, and none of us are going to boycott the line or boycott the figure or whatever because it has, you know, Ricardo and Pua's heads on these bodies. That's not going to happen. I would be surprised if that happened, because as much as I feel the Power Rangers fan base has gone toxic in recent years, which again is a completely different subject right here, I believe that the majority of us are mature enough to make that distinction between real life and fantasy, and we're not going to lose it over an action figure with these two guys' heads on it. So if anything, I want the Cole and Shane figures as sort of a challenge to Hasbro to show you know what you're doing. You're not going to cave into overreaction or hysteria or anything like that. And then part of me does think, part of this is like, they are probably doing all these other figures first because we don't have any Ninja Storm figures. We only have one Wild Force, which is an indicator that they'll be doing more Wild Force down the line. But I can imagine that they're probably holding off, maybe to understand the sentiment, if they actually know what the story is behind it. Who knows? I don't know. But it would probably explain a few things. But in any case, of the Ninja Storm Rangers, Shayna is the one I want because I just want to see what they're going to do. They should do the right thing. I know they're going to do the right thing, but I'm just kind of curious what's going to happen. And before we move on, Ninja Storm, I don't particularly like it. I don't think it's a really good season. Not even really interested in Hurricaneer either. You know, there's just something about the season. Like, we got some good suits with the Thunder Rangers and whatnot. But I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me too much. And I kind of like Lothar. I know people don't like him as a villain, but there was some charisma that actor had as Lothar, and I would say that's probably the highlight of the season. But overall, Ninja Storm, not that good of a season. All right, so the next season up is Dino Thunder. Again, not a season I particularly enjoyed. Again, when these New Zealand seasons came in, they really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Ninja Storm, and Dino Thunder, and SPD. And, I mean, they're good. They're not the worst seasons. They're just kind of lower, in my opinion, in comparison to, other seasons. But that being said, and, I don't like the Dino Thunder costumes that much anyway. I mean, I don't know. They're too minimalistic in a lot of ways. And I'm not here to rag on Dino Thunder too much. I just don't like it as much as other people hail it as like the best season ever. And I do find it Lost and Found in Translation is probably one of the worst episodes in the entire series. So again, it's just not my thing. It's not something I'm particularly interested in. But the thing is, we have 3 out of the 5 Rangers already, and people want Kira next. I never did like Kira. She's my least favorite character in that season, and of course, one of my least favorite characters in the franchise. And the figure that I want, and I'm totally surprised they haven't released yet, is Dino Thunder Tommy, the Black Ranger. Again, we have all these other Tommy figures, and he, just like my Morphin, is oversaturating the franchise. Heck, they released a Fighting Spirit variant of the Green Mighty Morphin Ranger in this line. That was the first one they released. Can you believe that? But if I had to choose between the 2 remaining figures they could release, that's the one I would like. I would like the Dino Thunder Black Ranger. Yes, I like Tommy, but I think he has a cool weapon, and I think he has the best looking suit of the 5 Rangers. So that's the one I would go with. I would like to go ahead and see the Black Dino Thunder Tommy. And now we get into Power Rangers SPD. Again, another season I don't particularly like for a number of reasons. There are some good moments in it. There are some good characters. The entire fan base's refusal to believe my thoughts on A Squad is something that still rubs me wrong to this day, and that may color my opinion of it a little bit, but again, I'm just not particularly interested in SPD as a series overall. It's okay, but certainly not the best. Again, I don't. This period of Power Rangers, like from from Ninja Storm to SPD, people hail as the greatest seasons of Power Rangers ever, and I just don't see it, folks. I really don't. I mean, what my favorite character in all of SPD is? Sergeant Silverback. And I bet most of you don't remember who he is. He's the gorilla guy that gave the Rangers their SWAT training so they get their SWAT upgrades. I mean, he was hilarious. That was a character. I mean, it's like Planet of the Apes done as a comedy. But that being said, we have Red, Blue, Green, Pink, Omega, and A Squad and Shadow Ranger. Now, you would think I'd want to go ahead and get the SPD Yellow Ranger, but you'd be wrong. Believe it or not, the one I would love to go ahead and get is the Nova Ranger. And, they released the Omega Ranger, Sam, without a head. And I guess that makes somewhat sense because, he was a ball of light for the most of the series. But if you'll recall in endings, he and Nova both have actors that show up on screen, and they do have a head, and they have actors. So you can make a head. So I would certainly like to see a Nova Ranger with her actress's head. And I do like the Nova Ranger costume. I think it's probably the most interesting of the ones there. I mean, again, I was never a big fan of the SPD uniforms. Um, the asymmetrical design didn't really do for me. I mean, I thought it was clever, but it just kind of wasn't. It wasn't my favorite. And it's kind of the same thing that we have going on with Dino Fury now, with one side being black and the other side colored and all that. They do it a little bit better in this season, again, because of the number shapes, which again is clever. Um, but I just never kind of really liked them. But the Nova suit I think is interesting because it is essentially a Silver Ranger costume, and I'm a sucker for Silver Rangers, so I would definitely like to go ahead and see SPD Nova Ranger in this line. Next we have Mystic Force, and surprised they haven't gotten to any of these figures yet. The funny thing is in the the mobile game, we have, White Mystic Ranger, Korag, Liambel, and Daggeron, and yet none of the main Rangers, and they haven't made any Mystic Force figures as of yet. And I suppose they're probably trying to decide what fabric or material they're going to be using to make their capes. Now, this is where I actually did start liking the New Zealand seasons, because I did like a lot of the character dynamics. I did like a lot of the secondary characters. I like a couple of the Ranger characters and so forth. And so my choice for this, the figure I would like most of the first Mystic Force Ranger to release, I would like to go ahead and say Chip, the Yellow Mystic Ranger. I really like his design. I think he is the coolest looking of all the Mystic Force Rangers. And I do think in general the Mystic Force Rangers have some good costumes. The little half capes are nice and all that. I love the helmets. I think the helmets are very cool. And I hope, if they ever do more than Mighty Morphin roleplay helmets, I'd love to see some Mystic Force helmets. But Chip was probably my favorite design overall. I love the Yellow Ranger. And boy, I hope that when they do make the Mystic Force lines, they will do the Mystic Legends mode. That's pretty cool. I like what they did with those. But I would definitely be happy with the Mystic Force Yellow. And like I said, this was the first New Zealand series in the Disney era that I did like for a number of reasons. Probably could have been better on a number of fronts. There's a little bit of weirdness and goofiness going on. But I did think this was a lot better than the 3 seasons that came before. And I just like it. I like the idea of magic base. I wish they will expand on it and further Power Rangers episodes and material and so forth. Because honestly, at this point, other than Xander showing up in Once a Ranger, and of course Fireheart's scale being part of the Overdrive weapons, Mystic Force doesn't really get mentioned a lot past that season. Well, there's Korag and Beast Morphers, but again, that's just stock footage and all that. I'd like to see some sort of return with these guys, because again, they are pretty cool. Now, the next season, people seem to dislike and hate with a passion, and I do not know why. I've probably seen a Linkara video on Operation Overdrive so many times, and I just can't understand why people hate this season so much. I thought it was great. Is it one of the best? No, but I mean, it's above mid tier, I'll tell you that. And a lot of good Rangers to go ahead and choose from here, none of which they made the figures yet. But I think the one that I would probably want to start out with is Rose, the Pink Ranger. And she was my favorite character. I just like this idea of this Mensa level, teenage girl genius that's making robots and teaching class and stuff. And she's a Power Ranger. And, the Pirate in Pink episode, or is it Pink Pirate? I forget. I always get that mixed up. I think that's a great episode. Shows her character, and I thought at some point she was going to have a romance with Tyzon. I thought that's what they were kind of leading into after Once a Ranger, but they never went there. I wish they had more to go ahead and do with her character, but I just like Rose, and I'd love to go ahead and see her, as a figure. I'd like to see her as the first figure in the, Operation Overdrive line once they get there. I don't think the series is so hated that it's going to be like one of the last ones they do. I think it, will come into play at some point. And she's the first one that I would like to go ahead and see turned into a figure. And that's all I really have to say on Operation Overdrive. Again, I don't get the hate, but it's a good season, so there you are. Jungle Fury, I have a lot of mixed feelings about. And, the thing about Jungle Fury for me is that I saw Jungle Fury first, then I saw Geiki Ranger. Believe it or not, Geiki Ranger was the first Sentai I ever watched in its entirety. And I watched it after watching Jungle Fury, and now every time I go back to Jungle Fury, it's just so disappointing. My goodness. Oh boy. Yeah. You really get that whiplash. And then, of course, what we got coming next, oh, it's even worse. But, so of the 5 Rangers, and yes, I know the Spirit Rangers and all that, I never did like the Spirit Ranger costumes. I know they were designed by the same company that made the Sentai suits. But they like again, they're made by the same company, but were they made by the same designers? Because they vaguely, let's be honest, guys, the Spirit Rangers look like Jungle Fury bootlegs. They don't actually look like Jungle Fury Rangers. So I don't know if they had the same company, but they certainly didn't have the same designers and creators behind it. But like I said, Jungle Fury is kind of a mixed season for me. A lot of it has to do with the characters. Mainly our main 3 Rangers, Casey, Lily, and Theo. Oh, you talk about cringe. It's just kind of painful to watch them when you go back to Jungle Fury. But the character that I did like, and the Ranger suit that I think is the coolest, is Dominic, the Jungle Fury Rhino Ranger. Oh, I can't wait to get a figure of him. I do think that is probably the coolest Ranger suit there. I mean, certainly the Lunar Wolf, not the Lunar Wolf, the Jungle Fury Wolf Ranger is cool, but I'm just going to give that slight edge to the Rhino Ranger, and I think part of it has to do with his weapon. I can't wait to see him utilize his weapon in the figure. It's just really cool design. I really think it is, and I do like the character. I don't like how they make the comparison of like Doogie Howser and all that. I'm just like, they look similar a little bit. Maybe. What's your point? Again, I just thought he was a pretty cool character in the show. A lot better than our 3 leads. And again, just kind of interesting how it goes in the show. But I will say this. Once they do get the 5 main Rangers, I do expect them to make, Jared and Camille figures. But man, Jungle Master modes of the 3 main Rangers. Oh, that's the one I'm salivating for. I mean, in this list, I want to kind of do what the basic figures should be before we do upgrades and armors and any types of variants and stuff. But man, those are the ones I'm going to want. Let's have the first 3-pack just to get those guys, because that would be awesome. That would be cool to go ahead and see. All right, now, and the worst Power Rangers season, and I can already hear many of you stopping and disliking this video, RPM. Guys, I have not changed my opinion. I still think RPM is the worst season of Power Rangers. And for a time, I thought Megaforce would be worse, but not really, because, let's be honest, Megaforce is only half bad. Only half bad. The super part is terrible. But as a whole, Megaforce is better than RPM. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, it's like, what's this crazy guy talking about? I do think RPM is the worst. It is overblown by the fan base, that which has died off in recent years, I'll say. I don't hear a lot of praise for it anymore, maybe because of a reevaluation of how terrible it really is. And I've done videos on why I hate this. Look at episode 95, that goes into a lot of detail. A lot of my opinions have not changed on that subject. Maybe I've been too harsh, but yeah, if you're ranking every Power Ranger season, RPM is dead last in mine. And again, just so you guys know, for those of you that are new here, it is the integration of the comedy aspects into the premise of the series. Because what was the Terminator franchise missing when they went, when they did the future ones, where they're being hunted by the robots since the last see humanity? Oh yeah, a refrigerator or a refrigerator with a cannon. That's what Terminator was missing, and thankfully Power Rangers RPM gave it to us. Yeah, there's no justifying that at all. I mean, come on, guys, really? Okay, so that's enough bashing of RPM. Worst series ever. However, there are good elements of RPM. I think every Power Ranger season has its good elements, its great elements, its terrible elements, and so forth. RPM on a whole is terrible, but one of my favorite characters in all of Power Rangers is an RPM, and that is Flynn, Ranger Operator Series Blue. Or I'm just going to call him the Blue Ranger because that's what the heck he is. He is the Blue Ranger. I can't say much the design is good. I mean, as far as Go-Onger is concerned, I think they're decent designs. I think the worst design... Okay, not the worst design, but, like, the least best is probably the Blue Ranger, because you know what his animal's supposed to be? It's a lion. Look at that helmet. Can you really see a lion in that helmet? It's a little hard to tell, isn't it? But the fact is that Flynn is one of the best Rangers ever in the entire series. If there's one character I bring back, it's him. Why bring back Dr. K and Beast Morphers? Bring back Flynn. And his line, I'm Scottish, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's great. I mean, what if Scotty was a Power Ranger? That's basically what Flynn is. Actually, he reminds me more of Miles O'Brien, who's Irish and all that. And I think his episode Ranger Blue is probably the best episode of RPM, which is not saying much, but again, he is, I think, the best character in that series, and that's by far the one I would like to go ahead and see, just because he is my favorite character. Okay, so moving into the Neo Saban era, we do have Samurai / Super Samurai. And again, I don't count these as 2 seasons. It's 1 season spread over 2 years. I don't understand why they did that. And that's the one thing that has annoyed me in the second half of Power Rangers' existence is these 2 seasons over 2 years, or 1 season over 2 years. Excuse me. I do not like it. I think it was a bad decision. It's still a bad decision, and the fact that they're moving to Netflix, I think will definitely change that. Future Power Rangers is up in the air, certainly, but I can't imagine they would continue this moving forward now that Hasbro totally owns the brand and they're going to take in different directions. But Samurai, I don't know. I mean, I hesitate to call it good, but I don't want to call it bad either, because ultimately what the problem with Samurai is that they took the Shinkanger scripts, put them through Google Translate, but then took anything Japanese out of them. Because, I mean, what is the point of having Morphers their calligraphy brushes to create kanji, which are part of the Japanese language, and turning into Samurai Rangers, and then calling them power symbols? I mean, what's the purpose of that? I always said this. Samurai was an opportunity for 2 things. One, to have our Red Ranger be Japanese, which still don't think we've had an Asian Red Ranger at all in the history of Power Rangers, which is odd. It's really saying something. And 2, the opportunity to teach children and fans alike what Japanese culture is all about. Because, I mean, How many of you actually raise your hand? How many of you tell me what a samurai actually is, and don't say a Japanese warrior, because that's only part of the story. And that's kind of the thing, is that they had this great opportunity to do something about culture in Japanese, but then they stripped everything away from it. I mean, talk about whitewashing. I mean, they're part of the Shiba clan, and it's all full of white people. Well, I mean, except Mia and Kevin, but you get the point that I'm trying to make. They just took everything out of it, remotely Japanese, because at that point, why call it Power Rangers Samurai to begin with? Because if you're going to talk about samurai and you're not going to talk about the history, the culture, traditions, or even have the series even based in Japan, which actually I think it is, but that's a theory for another time. It just seems like a total waste, and I do not understand why they did that. But that all being said, you have to go for the cutest ranger of them all, and that is Mia. Certainly her actress could have done a lot better. Certainly they could give her better plots because, and no offense to Mr. Rubio, whom I did an interview with about this episode, I do think that her episode with her brother is probably the worst in Samurai and probably one of the worst in the entire series because, and I say it again, it was based off a Japanese episode that got me really emotional and had a great story, and then it turns into a story about, you know, familial expectations that's slightly racist and based off a sitcom subplot, of, oh, well, if I would have only told you this, it's a plot that can be resolved by one line of dialogue. I mean, again, no offense to Mr. Rubio. I mean, he was contracted to do what he did, and he only wrote half the episode, but man, they gave her bad episodes, and I am still disappointed she never ended up with Spike, because you never see that in the series where it's kind of like, and really a lot of me, it's where it's like the dorky guy ends up with the hot babe. That's really not something that happens too much. And yes, I know you could point to some examples, but man, we needed that in Power Rangers, didn't we? But I'm digressing too much. The figure I would want is Mia. I'd like to see how they make her actress look in the figure and all that. I would like to see what accessories it comes with. But again, Mia would be the one I want from Samurai. I'm actually kind of surprised that we don't have any Samurai figures as of yet, because there's a long stretch of years where there are no figures whatsoever between SPD and Dino Charge, that's a pretty major stretch. So hopefully we'll be getting some figures here in the future, because like Shinkanzer suits are great, just in the context of Samurai, not so much. Now we move on to Megaforce and Super Megaforce. Now, the unique thing about this is that, in Link Hard put it best, it's a Frankensteinish Frankenstein of the show. There are 2 seasons going on. You got Megaforce, Super Megaforce, you got Ghostager footage, and you got Gokaiger footage. And yeah, you had something like that with Mighty Morphin back in the early years, but they really made it work. They did not make it work in Super Megaforce. And again, if it was just Megaforce, it wouldn't be that bad, but Super Megaforce does bring it down. But like I said, it's not the worst series, but it's if RPM is the worst, this is the next one up. And the thing is, again, I think the fan community really overblows Gokaiger, and to that, they were really disappointed with Super Megaforce. And I don't think Gokaiger deserves all the praise that it gets, because take away the gimmick, and the series is just average. But I digress on that point. That being said, if I was to go ahead and get a figure release, and here's where I'm going to kind of deviate a little bit, I would like to see a Jake figure, mainly as the Megaforce Black. But I think this would be an interesting opportunity to do a 2-pack. Because let's be real here. If they say they were going to be doing Super Megaforce Rangers next, you know for a fact that they will be pre-ordered to hell. They will have to limit one per customer because everybody's going to be buying Super Mega Force Red, Super Mega Force Blue, Super Mega Force Silver. They're going to get all those because they love their Gokaiger so much. And you're going to have Sentai only fans or that love them more just to get them for that fact alone. Nothing wrong with that except for the scalpers, but you know that they will be instantly selling better than any of the other figures, probably other than Mighty Morphin. But then let's say they release a Megaforce Ranger. They're probably not going to be moving as many units of those because even though they associate the badness with the Super Megaforce aspect, people can't get over the fact that that's Gokaiger, but they could care less about Goseiger. So I think the reasonable thing to do and the interesting thing to do was basically take every Megaforce and Super Megaforce Ranger and turn it into a 2-pack. So you got Jake with his Black Ranger and Granger form, Noah with both his forms, Troy, Gia, Gia, and dang, who's the other one? Emma. Emma. So these characters are so forgettable because you're not going to be moving a lot of Mega Force Yellow, but you're going to be moving a lot of Super Mega Force Yellow. So I think the smart thing to do would be put them in a 2-pack, and that way you can get those Mega Force figures out there and, I wouldn't say curtail a lot of the scalping because, here's the deal. They've already released the 2-pack with Aisha as the Yellow Ranger and Scorpina, and there were already people who are taking the Scorpina figure out, leaving Aisha's figure in there and selling that individually. I mean, come on, folks. I mean, that's a lot of disrespect right there. You buy a 2-pack, you're getting both figures. But I could totally see that happening. It's like, hey, here is Megaforce Red in the Super Megaforce 2-pack minus the Super Megaforce version. So, I do think that's just kind of what I'd like to see. I mean, again, I prefer the Goseiger suits to the Gokaiger suits. I do prefer Goseiger to Gokaiger, and I do prefer Megaforce to Super Megaforce. But I think the way to go would have to be with the 2-packs. I think to really just kind of sell the Megaforce in general. Now we get to a season where there are lots of Rangers to choose from, and we already got 5 out there in the world. And that is Dino Charge, which, trust me, after coming off a couple of bad seasons, it was a real breath of fresh air. Again, not perfect, but it was a lot better than what came before. And again, there's so many Rangers to choose from, so many interesting characters, and I went back and forth on this because my initial choice was Zenowing for the Silver Rangers. I love the Silver Ranger design. Like I said, I love Silver Rangers in general. And again, I want to see what they would do with his head. Or if they would just come with maybe a 2-pack with him and his alien body. But then I really thought about it a little bit more. And I think the Ranger that I would want most is Prince Philip as the Graphite Ranger. Because Prince Philip, he was my favorite character. And I'm like, I tell you this, I think Prince Philip and Xandar can be the Power Rangers what T'Challa and Black Panther are to the Marvel universe and Wakanda and all that, because you have a prince of his own nation. You can easily make him king. He can have his whole armies and powered by the graphite energem and whatnot and stuff like that. I mean, wouldn't that be cool to read his story? And frankly, with what's going on in Eastern Europe at the moment of this recording, well, that's an interesting story in itself to be told. But not getting too much into that. Point of the matter is, I would love to see the Graphite Ranger. That would be the next one I would go ahead and pick. I mean, more than likely, the next one they're going to get is probably Coda, so you can go ahead and fill out the original team, and then they'll start getting the rest of the Rangers in there. But Philip is the one that I want the most. Again, he was my favorite in that. And all the suits are great. They all have great designs. I'm a little iffy and keeping like the bronze parts of the Graphite Ranger and the Aqua Ranger because, again, if you know the Sentai, the bronze represents the dead characters resurrected to basically be the Rangers, and of course the bronze becomes yellow for their modern day counterparts. So there's all that. I mean, Power Rangers did what it did, and we have to go ahead and live with it. It's always going to look odd in comparison to the other Rangers, but it's still good suit design overall. Dino Charge was a decent series, not great, but considering where it came from, it had nowhere to go but up at that point. Okay, next we got Ninja Steel, which so I didn't watch Ninja Steel when it first came out. I ended up having to binge watch it on Netflix to get caught up. Um, and I wasn't missing much. I mean, Ninja Steel is just so disappointing. Did we really need so many fart jokes in Power Rangers? Did we really need comic relief? Did we need all that? Did we need a game show with monsters? I don't know. Ninja Steel is just a mess, and I can't imagine that they planned out anything in any amount of significance. It's just, it's just painful. Ninja Steel is really painful. A lot of cringe factor into it. I mean, it took me so long to binge that series just because I'm cringing every 5 minutes in that show. I mean, I just okay. I'm gonna get off that because I'll probably do a whole video on Ninja Steel and why I dislike it so much. But of the six Rangers and the Ninja costumes, they're all right. They're decent, I think, for what they are. Ninja ultimately is I think a forgettable series in terms of the Sentai, and I think Ninja Steel will go down as a forgettable series as well. But the one suit and the one character I did like the most was Haley. I really like the White Ranger suit. It's kind of interesting with White Rangers is that when they're female, they do keep pink elements in there. Go back to Wild Force and Alyssa. She's white, but her skirt has that pink trim on it, and that's just kind of interesting. But it works here for this character in that I mean there's like no pink on there, but it's like this black and white, and it really works. I can't describe it, but it's like the best looking of the Ninja Steel Rangers out there. And I like Haley. I think she's way underutilized in the series. And like, do you guys realize that she's dating our Yellow Ranger, and they never once kiss or make out in the entire series? And actually, what's even funnier is if you read the comics, there's a line in the comic in Shattered Grid, and I can't tell you the episode the issue right now. I'm blanking on it, but there's an implication that they're sleeping together. Seriously, I mean, you read it. I mean, that's the thing I went away with. I'm like, are they sleeping together? Is that what the comic is saying? And like, they're still teenagers. They're underage, so it's minor on minor actions. Like, oh, geez, and yet they don't kiss in the show at all. I don't understand how you do a relationship, especially with teenagers, and not have them kiss. I mean, I don't know what they expect out of children's shows nowadays, but do they just not expect us to believe that two people who are in love would never kiss? Is that part of the imitatable behavior? Are they afraid little boys and little girls are going to go kissing each other? I mean, come on. Really? All right. Not many good things to say about Ninja Steel, but I like Haley. I like her suit. I think it's the best design of the Ninja Steel. And maybe this is also spilling off that I love Fuka so much over in Ninja because she's so adorable. She's so great in that show. And again, Haley is like the best of the Ninja Steel Rangers, and that's, again, it's not saying much. Beast Morphers. Wow, this it took me a long time to get to this show too. I binge watched the whole thing on Netflix as well. A little bit of cringe in there, but man, for the first season of the Hasbro era, it was not bad at all. Are there some things I would change? Definitely. I would have definitely gotten a different actor to play Nate. Not to say that the actor is a bad actor. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that Nate just wasn't a very interesting character. But I like Devin. I like the mayor. Zoe kind of grew on me and all that. But this figure I want the most, the figure I want the most is Steel. Damn it, I want Steel. He was the best. He is probably one of my favorite characters in all of Power Rangers now. I just love his upbeat personality and egotism. It was great. I love, again, another Silver Ranger. I like what they did with the costume there. And I just want to get the figure where it has his giant robot head on a regular body. That last episode of season one, or the first half, where they go into Evox's dimension, and he's wearing the Silver Ranger suit without the helmet, but he's got that massive pincer beetle helmet head on, and it's so ridiculous, but I love it. And I hated in the series finale where they made him human because, like, they made him a kid. Why couldn't you just bring in the voice actor or make him look, just interesting in any way? I mean, they ruined Steel's character in the final episode. They really, really did. Why did you have to make him human? I get why you made Mac human. I get it. It works for that story. It does not work for Steel. Steel's like Data. You can't make Data human. You can't make Steel human. But they did, and boy, I hope they retcon that in a future series or change it back, because I miss his original voice. I miss his robot by me. He was just so cool in that show, and I have nothing but good things to say about Steel, other than the end of the series. And Beast Morphers was decent. I thought it was on to a good track. Not much to say about the series. Again, it was pretty good. Except just one last thing before we get to our last season right here. Is there a reason why we have to give them weapons that straight up look like toys? Like I get that the weapons are toys to a certain degree, but do we have to go out of our way to make them look like toys as much as possible? Because a lot of the weapons that were not in Go Anger, or excuse me, in Go Buster, sorry, I can't believe I made a mistake, but the weapons that were not originally from Go Busters, they totally look like toys. I mean, they look like Nerf guns. That's what I thought. They look like Nerf toys. And you had to have screwed up if that's what was happening. So I want to see Steel. That's what I want to see. We'll get Zoe down the line, but man, Steel is the one I want the most. Now we get to the current Power Rangers season, which in a few days will be dropping season 2, and I'm already 12 episodes into Dino Fury, which I can't believe we're doing dinosaurs again. They went back and did Ryu Soldier like that, and I have a lot of opinions about not adapting and adapting Sentai, and that's, again, something else we can talk about at a later date, but so Zeto's the first one that come out with, and logically, you would think Izzy, the first LGBTQ plus character in the series, again, not the movies or the comics, would be the logical one to do, and they might do that. But Have, that Black Ranger suit, it's slick. It really is. I didn't watch Rio Soldiers. I got bored with it after 3 episodes, so I'm guessing it's a pretty average Sentai. And maybe I could be wrong. I might go back and rewatch them if TV Niho ever, comes back up online again. But I'm just not. I just wasn't a fan of that, and I wasn't really a fan of the Lego Zords that they had. But damn, if I'm watching this series, and while Jave's not the best character out there, he's got the slickest looking suit. I'm still debating whether or not that really is a Stegosaurus or not, but damn it, that helmet with the details and just how his black matches and everything, it looks really good. And that's the figure I would want most. Again, they're probably going to do Izzy first just because of her cultural significance, and that's fine. That's fine. But if it was me and I got to pick the next one, I would want the Black Ranger just because of how cool he looks. And I think the thing I would love to see them do with the Dino Fury ones eventually, and there's that shot from the final episode of Ryu Soldier, and I think it's in the intro. Well, not the intro, but it's in the first episode where they do the flashback with Zato and all that, where all 6 of the main Rangers have their armor add-ons. Not the standard ones, but it's like the Fire add-on and the Red Rangers and his Battleizer armor, and the Blue Ranger has like the Ice Pterodon armor. And I don't know what their names are. Again, I'm only 11 episodes in. They've only introduced the Fire armor. I would love to see them do figures of those, because once they get Dino Fury done, those would be the next ones you'd have to go to. and that to me would just go ahead and be cool to have as a set. Because again, I'd love it. I love it when each team has a like a power up like Lights of Orion and so forth. But what's unique about the Rio Soldier Dino Fury is that they all have like unique power ups that are different from each other, and I do think that is, I mean that is awesome. That is pretty cool. All right, so we reached the end of the line for every particular season. So I just want to, a few other things I just want to talk about before we go ahead and wrap this up, because the Lightning Collection line is going to go ahead and continue. The future Power Rangers, again, a lot of speculation out there what's going to happen. I mean, I'm hoping what will happen is first of all, I want clarification on Hasbro's rights to the movies. Because to me, the logical thing to do at this point would to be release figures from the 1995 movie and the 2017 movie, but nobody knows if they actually have the rights to those movies or not, which I don't know why they wouldn't. And if they did have the rights, you think they would tell us to say, we do have the rights, but we don't plan on releasing any figures at this time. Or they would say, we don't have the rights, but we're attempting to gain them so we can release these figures. I mean, tell us one way or the other. I don't know why they're silent on this point. It's just so confusing. But I'm hoping we'll get those figures in the near future. Certainly start adapting some comic Rangers. I think everybody and their mother wants Omega Ranger figures. I would love to see what they would do with Yale and making him into a Lightning Collection figure. And I think because, you have the Squadron Rangers, which I still think is a stupid name. You have the Supersonic Rangers. You have the Prism Rangers. All these Sentai teams that were adapted, they're being introduced in the comics. I think you do whole teams of those, because I would love to get myself a Prism Ranger set, all 5 of those. That would be pretty cool. Man, you don't know how much money I'd shell out for Squadron Rangers, especially since they have a Black Ranger in there now for some reason. I don't know why, but the Power Rangers universe will tell us eventually why that is. And then, there are teams from the Sentais like Q Ranger and Tokyuger, and Zoolger that have not been adapted. They may get adapted because, that's things I would love to see Q Ranger adapted just for the hope to get them as Lightning Collection figures. Because even though I haven't really watched that series all the way through, I love looking at those suits. I think they're great in design. And that would be one of the next things to go ahead and do. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, the fact that we even got the Ninja Turtle figures from the comic crossover tells you that anything is on the table right now with Power Rangers. And I hope they take that opportunity to do those unique things like the Legendary Ranger powers, the unadapted Sentai, and all that. Because to me, if they appear in the show, a movie, or the comic book, it should be fair game. Because even though the Prism Rangers appeared in one shot of Super Megaforce, you can make a figure out of that, and they appeared in the comics, and that's something I definitely want to go ahead and see. So we'll just have to see what the future holds here. But again, I like the figures. I hope quality control gets better on them in the future, because we've had a number of issues of late with some of the figures. Again, Lunar Wolf and the Blue Rangers Galaxy Glider. But again, I like this line. I think it's the single best thing that Hasbro has done. I'm curious to see where the Zord Ascension project goes. As long as they don't involve NFTs, I'm fine with that. But what are they going to do besides the Megazord and possibly the Dragon Zord? Who knows at this point? Where are they going to go with roleplay weapons? Are they going to do more helmets? I'm surprised we got the Lord Zed helmet, but his Green Ranger next, Black Ranger, Dino Fury, SPD, we'll see. I'm excited, but my bank account is crying, is the best way I can go ahead and describe it. But to wrap this up, and I probably talked too long here, but like I said, I got my thoughts on Power Rangers. I got my thoughts on the Lightning Collection figures that I'd like to go ahead and see. So, hey, in the comment section below, tell me your favorite, seasons of Power Rangers. What Lightning Collection figures that you want to have, and feel free to disagree with anything I said. I hear a lot of you typing your rebuttals on RPM right now, so the comment section will be interesting as always. But hey guys, again, once again, sorry for being gone for so long from this, and hopefully I can do more of these. The time will tell. It just depends on a number of factors in my life right now, but just want to get a lot of this off my chest and share it with you guys, and we'll see if I come back. I guess we'll see how well this video does. But hey, I want to thank you guys for sticking it out with me for so long, and welcome all you new guys and girls in here. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and the tavern is now closed.